Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. In this video I am going to analyze GS1 to GS3, the papers which we recently concluded for 2023 mains papers. Okay, and the reason for this analysis is that there has been certain changes in the way UPSC has asked the questions, especially in GS1, and it appears that UPSC is expecting you to do more of interconnection of topics across the subjects, across current and static. And I just want to kind of show to you that how this is becoming extremely important, and then I'm going to give you certain insights around what we can learn from this exam. So let us start. So I'm going to analyze the GS1 paper in detail, whereas I have actually picked up certain questions from GS2 and GS3. I'm not going to look at the entire paper, but certain questions where there is something unique about it, from which we can really get some insight, and keep that in mind when we are preparing for the next year. So let us start. So this is the GS1 paper for 2023 mains, and we will go question by question. We will not spend a lot of time on each of the questions because the objective here is really to understand what is really asked, and if such kind of questions are getting asked, then what should be our focus for the preparation for the next year. तो देखो ये फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन जो है, एक्सप्लेन द रोल ऑफ जियोग्राफिकल फैक्टर्स टुवर्ड्स द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ एंशियंट इंडिया. The first question itself is a, I should not say bouncer, but that the main syllabus for GS1 actually talks only about the modern history of India and the post independence area society. But then you suddenly see a question on ancient India here. All the preparation that you have done for prelims is going to be useful here, but then generally you should have a very good idea of entire history, ancient, medieval and modern. This is what is coming out of this question, right? But more importantly, the question is not directly about any specific point in the ancient India. It is a generic question which says that the role of geographical factors, right? So you can see that this is history plus, you can say, geography question, because this is not about a specific topic or any particular kingdom or empire or the king or any process or administration of ancient India. It is about how the geographical factors of India affected the development of ancient India. So the factors like the presence of Himalayas, so there were no invasions from this side. The presence of passes on Afghanistan Pakistan border like Khyber Pass, etc. That was the primary entrance for anyone to come in, and that's why this geographical feature played an important role. And then of course beyond Himalaya immediately you have rivers, right? So this is Ganga Yamuna, then this is Indus civilization, and then you have Brahmaputra on this side. These rivers played a very important role in the development of the ancient India, right? And then there are other rivers here, Narmada especially and Tapti, which actually defined the boundaries of many of these kingdoms, right? And these so how you link the history to geography, what role geography plays in the history, and this is applicable for medieval India, this is applicable for modern history as well, right? So this is different type of question which UPSC has asked, and that is the first question itself in the GS1 paper. So combination of subjects. Now second, महात्मा गांधी और रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर में शिक्षा और राष्ट्रवाद के प्रति सोच में क्या अंतर था. Now there has been couple of questions long back on Mahatma Gandhi as well as Rabindranath Tagore, as well as their idea of education. So I would say that this is a PYQ based question, but they have also added nationalism here. Now there is a possibility that I'm sure that all of you know about Mahatma Gandhi a lot and his idea of nationalism as well as his thoughts on education, but there is a possibility of some of you not knowing that much about Rabindranath Tagore's philosophy or ideology as such on these two areas. But then that he established Shanti Niketan. He was more modern, or more inclined towards Western type of education. So you can actually weave a story around that if you are not aware about it. Okay. Then the third question is bring out the socio-economic effects of the introduction of railways in different countries of the world. Now I will call this is of course a modern history question. This is history plus geography question. Now here I will categorize this as a geography question, not history. But you know that in industrial revolution period, that was the time when the railway started in many countries. But the question is, what are the socio-economic effects of introduction of railways in different countries? Now if you are aware of some examples, you can call that out. But then it is very unlikely, probably, that you may not know the exact example of development of railways in all the countries, but you are well aware of development of railways in India. So build your answer based on that, right? And when it comes to the socio-economic effects, you know that culture exchange, there is employment opportunity, there is economic development, there is a construction activity, there is a increase in trading or business, tourism, all those factors. I think these are easy factors to guess or think about. But then if you are aware of any effects or introduction of railways in any different parts of the world, you must call that out, because this question is about the world. So another change that I can see is there are questions around world in this paper. They are not limited to India. Discuss the consequences of climate change on the food security in tropical countries. Now this, I would say, that is a general question again. This is a pure geography question, but climate change is very common topic. In fact, I have made a video just before this exam analyzing the PYQ, where I had identified this as one area where question can be expected. I am sharing the link of that video in the description and you can watch it. So this is pretty much on the expected lines. There are two aspects here. One is food security, another is tropical countries. So you need to be very specific in your answer, referring to the tropical countries, that is between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, the equatorial belt and the tropical areas. What is the impact of food security? So you should not forget Africa here, you should not forget India here, and I mean the Indian subcontinent nations, and then of course Gulf countries, especially poor ones like Afghanistan. And you should just link that to the food security. So what is the impact of climate change, right? So it will impact the crop, it will actually sometimes destroy the crop because of the delay of the rains or early arrival of the rains. It would impact the quality of the soil, it would impact the nutrition value of the grains which are getting grown up because of the climate change. So there are many aspects like that that you can bring out in this answer. Okay, then the next question is, why is the world today confronted with the crisis of availability and access to freshwater resources? So there are two aspects here, you should not forget either of them. You have talk about availability as well as access. Now this is also, I would say, PYQ based question, because water resources availability, the question has been asked umpteen number of times, and you must be able to answer this question very easily if you are prepared for geography. So but the important aspect is, don't forget about talking about access, right? So access is related to economic stature, population, and transportation, technology. So don't forget that aspect in your answer to this question, but it is pretty straightforward. Next is, how are the fjords formed? Why do they constitute some of the most picturesque areas in the world? Now here many people said, or students said, that they didn't know, but actually this has been mentioned in just as an introductory in the NCERT as well, but in a very short format. This is a glacial landform. So near sea, the glacier creates a trough like this when it flows through that, and there are mountains here, right? So this is, and then ultimately the seawater comes and fill this up. So this landform is called as fjord. Okay. This is primarily found in Norway, New Zealand, Chile, Alaska, in these countries, Canada. if you can remember what fjord is, then possibly you can answer this question. But if you didn't remember anything, then a difficult question. Physical geography, again I had identified this as an important topic for this year. I mean, every year one question comes on physical geography necessarily, but until now they were more or less straightforward, simpler questions. This is something which UPSC has found out from some corner somewhere and asked that question. Next is interesting question. Why is the southwest monsoon called Purvaiya in Bhojpuri region? How has the directional seasonal wind system influenced the cultural ethos of the region? Now you see here, this is a geo plus society, combination of subject, right? So Purvaiya, because it comes from easterly. Why? So southwest monsoon comes here, but then it gets divided into two kind of parts on this tip, and then some monsoon comes from this side, I mean, which is originally coming from this side and like this, right? And here in northeastern ranges, Himalayas, they do not allow it to go beyond, and it turns leftward side and flows into Bhojpur region from the easterly side. And that's why it is called Purvaiya. And you might have heard many songs which is using this word, right? But we never actually think that from where this word is coming. So that's the reason. But I am, I have a little problem with this question, because this is very, very specific question. It is okay to ask that in geography, but it is asking for cultural ethos of the region. Okay? So people from Bihar or UP or maybe MP, they are going to get benefited because they know this region really, really well. They may know much more relevance of Purvaiya into their songs, dance, drama, literature, etc., and may be able to answer this question more effectively. But yeah, I mean, that's how it is. So this is a mixed question, geography and society. So combination of subjects. 8. Do you think marriage as a sacrament is losing its value in modern India? Again, PYQ based question, very general question, right? You can talk about, divorce, live-in relationship, same-sex marriage, etc., in this, and then link it to, the sanctity or the sacrament or the purity of the marriage institution in India. Okay, but this is a social question, very, very basic question, I would say, from that perspective. The next question. Explain why suicide among young women is increasing in Indian society. Now, this is again society question. I would call it as a simple generic question, easy question. You should be able to answer that, based on various topic, relationship, mental, parental pressure, etc. Whatever factors you can think of. It said that young women, okay, so think from that perspective, right? Marriage related issues, relationship issues, mental stress, study, parental pressure, there might be financial stress also, all these factors, but otherwise this is a very straightforward. Next question, see. So one thing which I can see that you really do not see this written anywhere in the syllabus, but then the questions are very, very relevant. If you look at the current affairs of last 8 to 12 months, you must see some important news about this question, marriage related question, all these questions, right? So good understanding of the social issues in India, if someone has, then you will be able to answer this very effectively. I mean, such a simple question, child cuddling is now being replaced by mobile phones. Discuss its impact on the socialization of children. So basically, when the child cries, the parents tend to give the mobile instead of taking them on their laps and then talking to them or pacifying them. The good way to pacify kids nowadays to give a mobile phone, even while eating. People, the kids watch either TV or a mobile phone. So obviously it is going to impact their social skills, because the more you interact, the parents interact with the kids will be able to understand the language, express their emotions, build those interpersonal skills, develop communication skills, uh, develop emotional quotient as well. uh, their ability to think will also improve, because nothing is ready made served in front of their eyes, but they have to visualize the things when something is being talked to them. A lot of aspects to that, and I would say that this is a very very simple straightforward question. Everyone should be able to write this properly. Next, what are the main features of Vedic society and religion? Now, there have been many PYQs. You should be able to write this, but see this, right? So I would call this as, ancient history or society to modern society. Look at the breadth of this question, right? The next part says that, do you think some of that is still relevant or prevailing in Indian society? I'm sure that all of you must have read about this part and should be able to write it. But this you may have to think, various dimensions of the Vedic religion which are still prevalent, the belief system of the people, the religiosity of the people, things like that, right? And the rituals that they follow, the festivals that they celebrate. You need to bring out a lot of examples and say that, to what extent it is prevailing in the modern age. 12. Now, what were the major technological changes introduced during Sultanate period? How did those technological changes influence the Indian society? Now, this is medieval history, right? Again, it is a medieval history because it is a Sultanate period. Agriculture, weaponry, those are the two main areas where a lot of changes happened. Technological changes happened in that period. If you have read the Sultanate period and the society at that time, should be able to answer that. But the learning here is that ancient history, medieval history is important. Whether it is written or not doesn't matter. Okay, so that's the question number 12. The next one, how did the colonial rule affect the tribals in India? What was the tribal response to colonial oppression? This is certainly modern history. Simple, straightforward, lot of PYQs on that, right from Santals to lot of pre-independence tribal movements. Whatever you can remember, bring that out. But this is a pretty straightforward question. Comment on the resource potentials of the long coastline of India and highlight the status of natural hazard preparedness in these areas. Geography plus disaster management, which is basically from GS3. So think of it, even this part I have brought out as an important topic for this year in my PYQ analysis video. So here, coastal region ka mineral resources plus marine resources, and then you talk about the preparedness for the natural hazards. Now, natural hazards, obviously tsunami and cyclone, that will be focused on that. So various measures which are prevalent in the coastal areas of India, you should be able to bring that out. Again, I would say to some extent dependent on PYQs as far as the resources are concerned, and you have studied the disaster management and tsunami, flood, cyclones, everything, right? So just bring that out from there. But again, so you see the cross subject in questions, you see cross paper questions also. Identify and discuss the factors responsible for diversity of natural vegetation in India. Assess the significance of wildlife sanctuaries in rainforest regions in India. Uh, Good question. You can answer this based on NCRTs as well. I'm sure that you have read about wildlife sanctuaries, although you may not have seen a PYQ on this. But then, this is a pretty straightforward, right? And diversity of natural vegetation is clearly described in the basic NCRT books as well. So good question. Again, geography question. Why did human development fail to keep pace with economic development in India? Various factor, you should be able to articulate what human development means and why it is failed in India, especially from the economic development standpoint. Okay, so there is a question in GS 2 as well on this. It has been asked twice, almost similar question. And if you have read about human development, you should be able to answer both the questions. Next, from being net food imported in 1960s, India has emerged as a net food exporter in the world. Provide means. Again, PYQ, because a lot of questions on PYQs, although not directly like this, but this is basically green revolution. Period before that, period after that, what happened in this period? High yielding seeds or crops, technological changes, mechanization of farming, finance, finance availability, soil research. You can bring a lot of aspects. Then irrigation technology, everything got improved, right? And green revolution and the agenda played a very important role in all this. I'm sure that you have read about, but again, this is agri question, right? And geography question and economic question. Does urbanization lead to more segregation and or marginalization of poor in Indian metropolis? I have identified urbanization also as an expected topic for this year's video in my PYQ analysis video. Various aspects of urbanization have been asked. In fact, this was, if I remember correctly, was asked in 15-16, and after that there is no question on smart cities, but there have been questions on urbanization, and this always remained an important area. Standard of living is poor, access to sanitation, water, healthcare might be less because of the crowded spaces. Segregation automatically happens because the marginalized people tend to live together. Development of slums in the urban areas, all these effects, I think, fairly easy to kind of imagine and write about it even if you have not read about it. Why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? There have been questions on caste in mains in the past, even in sociology optional. So I would think that it will be a good idea, looking at these questions, that for this subject, the history, society, geography, it's good idea to even have a quick look at the optional questions. Okay. Just think about whether you will be able to think of story to write if you have to answer that question when you are preparing for the mains. Of course, you have to look at all the mains PYQs, but I would suggest to look at some of these, these subjects, right? The important subjects, economics, uh, history, geography, society, PSIR, etc. Look at the optional questions also, because I can see that some of that is getting picked up in the mains. So fluid, yes, because caste is losing its relevance more and more, but then static, but it is not getting eradicated completely. So both things are there, right? I mean, all of us have caste, but then some of us are more and more not really giving a lot of importance to that. But then in some parts of India, as well as we as an individual can't get rid of the caste as, right? And there are caste related politics and things like that, which gives and keeps the caste static, but then it is becoming more and more fluid in the modern Indian society. Next, discuss the impact of post-liberal economy on ethnic identity and communalism. So this is again post-independence Indian society question. Should be able to answer, because the keywords are there: ethnic identity and communalism, very very burning topic in India even today. Fairly, you should be able to articulate the impact, right? So this is the GS1 paper. Now if you really look at these papers, this particular paper, you can see that there is a combination of multiple subjects, multiple topics. Even across the paper, some questions have been asked by mixing the topics together. So we need to prepare for an individual topic in that way, right? Because there is, you can't say that, I'm studying for gs1, then I'm studying for gs2, then I'm studying for gs3. These are my gs1 notes, these are my gs2 notes, because the questions from environment dm are getting mixed with geography. In this paper we saw the question from geography and history also getting mixed. So how do you really prepare for this, right? I will discuss that in short, the learnings from all these questions at the end of the video. But let us look at gs2 and gs3 quickly. I've selected only few questions from these papers and not looking at all the papers for specific reasons, and I will point out only that reason why I picked this question. Compare and contrast the British and Indian approaches to parliamentary sovereignty. I want you to understand the meaning of this word, right? Here, typically in the past, UPSC has asked compare, or they have asked differentiate. Contrast also they have asked once or twice in very old times, but in recent times this word has not been used, but now they suddenly used it. So compare means you have to show both similarities as well as differences. Because they are asking specifically to contrast, you have to focus on differences more than similarities. But you have to write some similarities because there is a compare also. So I have made a specific video on tail ender words, which you can see in I button. I'll give a link in the description also. Watch this video because it is important to have a good idea of all these tail ender words. And I have explained to you how simple it is, because there are only 5 to 6 groups that you need to really have a clear understanding of. So certainly watch this video because this matters. This is directly related to your understanding of the question. If your understanding of the question is not right or not enough, you are not going to answer the question in full, right? And that is going to bring your marks down. Okay? That is the reason I picked up this question from GS2. Next, the crucial aspect. Now I have a problem with this question, that's why I brought it up. The crucial aspect of development process has been the inadequate attention paid to the human resource development in India. So this is the question I was referring to in the previous GS1 paper. Suggest measures that can address this inadequacy. Here they are asking for measures. They are not asking you to comment on this. But see the language here. Here the language is good. मानव संसाधन विकास पर पर्याप्त ध्यान नहीं दिया जाना भारत की विकास प्रक्रिया का एक कठोर पक्ष रहा है. कठोर means difficult, right? Or this has a negative connotation. So you know that it is a harsh, but crucial doesn't mean harsh. Crucial means important. And for me, this sentence then doesn't make sense if you use the word crucial. The crucial aspect means we generally say that it is crucial to my success, right? Studying hard is crucial to my success, or practicing well is crucial to my performance in the match, right? So crucial word has more, it tends to give towards more towards the importance of the topic and not towards the harshness of the topic, whereas this here it means the harshness. I'll say that the harsh aspect of development process has been the inadequate attention, good. Or then the issue of the development process has been, because issue has that negative connotation, so they could have used any of these words. So if you're reading only English, I hope that you just ignored that part, because the question is very straightforward. Suggest measures that can address this inadequacy. Okay, so I have included this question in this list because not happy with this word language. Generally there is a problem with the Hindi words, but here I can see the problem with the English word. Okay, next, discuss the role of Competition Commission of India in containing the abuse of dominant position by the MNCs in India. Refer to the recent decisions. Now these kind of questions, I am not sure if you might have prepared it's its entirety, because you might have read about Competition Commission of India, I'm sure. Okay, but have you actually read about the cases? Have you read about the abuse of dominant positions by multinationals? Now there have been cases against Tata Motors, Airtel. I don't know, because everyone is reading different things, right? And you might have read these names, but you may not have remembered all the details of those cases. So how do you really answer to that? And here again they have shortened that list of cases to MNCs. So in 2021 22, sorry, 21 22 23, there have been cases against WhatsApp, Amazon, on in retail, here about privacy, and against Google or something related to their Play Store dominance. Yeah, so there have been cases from these MNCs, but then how much do you remember is really a question. So here I have included this question, that if you have read one small news, how do you really expand on that? You have to develop that skill. There might be some questions like this where only one single liner as a part of your current affairs reading, but then how do you expand that, because you have to write that in 150 words, right? How do you really do that? Because you have to explain that role of CCI with reference to the recent decisions. I would suggest that when you're reading current affairs, you have to develop a thought process around remembering certain crucial aspect of what is behind that, without which you won't be able to answer these questions. Virus of conflict is affecting the functioning of SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In the light of above statement, point out the role of India in mitigating the problems. Here, this is static, this is current. So, mix of static and current. I think this I don't have to tell you, right? You can see many questions which are mix of static and current. So that's why, I just picked this one question so that, and we will discuss about how to address that. A few more questions. Development of welfare schemes for the vulnerable by its nature are discriminatory in approach. Do you agree? Give reasons. You know why this question is important? Because yes, welfare scheme is a part of syllabus for GS2, but then you might have read n number of welfare scheme, who they are for. There was a question around legal aid, so on in this paper, so there it would help you, but then here the question is different. Okay, and I would mix this question with societal aspect. You know why? Because here it is asking you the social aspect of welfare scheme, and it is asking for your opinion. Read this statement. Development and welfare schemes for the vulnerable by its nature are discriminatory in approach. So they themselves discriminate the vulnerables. Okay. So whether you agree with this statement or not. Now here it is not enough for you to know welfare scheme, which I am sure that you study a lot. But you should understand the intent. You should understand the objectives. You should understand the implementation. Then you will be able to see whether you think they are discriminatory or not. So this is a very soft question. There are no hard facts here, and here your opinion is asked. So unless you know the intent behind the welfare scheme, why they are brought, how they are brought, how they are implemented, right, and by their nature are they discriminatory or not. So you should be able to answer this question only when you know the softer aspects of the welfare schemes, right? And that's why it is important to read newspapers, because newspapers will give you analysis. The current affair compilations will only give you mostly fact, but the editorials, articles will give you analysis of the issue. And unless you have read those analysis and noted down the points, you won't be able to put them in questions like this. Okay, so if there is a launch of a welfare scheme and there is any article around it, if you rate that kind of a stuff and not only remembered what welfare scheme for in which state for which people, then only you will be able to answer this question. And that's why I've included this to tell you that it is not enough to read the compilations. Newspaper reading is a must, without which you won't be able to answer such question. Question 18, skill development. Now here, very, very broad question. Again, I will include that with the society and the connection of topics. Skill development program, I am sure that you have read about this, right? But here the question is different. Have succeeded in increasing human resource supply to various sectors. In this context of the above statement, analyze the linkages between education, skill and employment. It is almost like a essay question. So you need to see or explain how these things are important. So you need to have a good understanding of employment. There is a question on employment specifically also in this paper, about how it is measured, etc. But then look at this question. It talks about education, it talks about skill, it talks about employability, right? And you should be able to differentiate properly between what is education and what is skill set, what is important from employability, how they are interlinked, whether you can develop skill without education, whether skill is enough for employment or education enough for employment. Put that in the current context, right? Because a lot of people are focusing on the skills now, even in the technology space rather than education or in addition to education. But then you have to write this in context of skill development program. Okay, but unless you have a good understanding of how the education system is working, how the skill development program is going to help, how it is going to generate the employment, or what kind of positive or negative impact it would have on the employment in India, and then how it is linked back to the education. So it is, again, I would say that based on the analysis. Here it is asking you to analyze, but then to have a strong points in this response, you should have those points ready, right? And how much will you really think about it? So the preparation, the entire year, 2 years that you are preparing for this exam, you should have a right approach in which you are reading the newspapers and taking down your notes. Unless you do that, you won't be able to develop that broader, strong understanding of the issues. And the questions are issue based, right? Talk about marriage, talk about suicides, talk about child, mobile and child. Take question like this: education, skill and employment linkage. You will be able to answer such questions only when you have a good understanding of the issues. So that's why I've included it here. Here, many students said that it is a bouncer. Yeah, because there's a full 15-mark question, and unless you have read a lot about IMO and its initiatives, you won't be able to answer this. I would call this as a difficult question for the simple reason that कि कॉर्नर से कुछ तो एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन उठाया और एक क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया. तो सी हियर, इन्वायरमेंट भी आ गया, सेफ्टी और सिक्योरिटी भी आ गया, 3 भी आ गया, 2 भी आ गया. Now some questions from the GS3. I'll tell you why I picked this. Faster economic growth requires increased share of the manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly MSMEs. Comment on the present policies and government in this regard. Economic growth, manufacturing sector का role, MSME, present policies, everything. Static, dynamic, current, whatever you want to call it. Combination of all the questions, all types of information. Most of the unemployment in India is structural in nature. Examine the methodology adopted to compute unemployment in the country. Why I included this? Generally, when we read the reports, survey reports, and we have to read a lot of them, are we really aware of how they are done? Generally, the methodology would be similar. So you talk of, you read that Human Development Index, India, it's, some 131 or something. That question should come to your mind, कि अरे, I know that कि ये है Human Development Index, but how is it really calculated? Can I get a big broad idea about how it is calculated, who is surveyed, to what extent they are surveyed, what is the weightage of different factors, how that factor is allocated to those different areas, why certain areas are given more importance, which areas are given more importance. थोड़ा सा एक step पीछे. Unless you have done that, you won't be able to answer this. So the holistic knowledge, right, and that continuous questioning or the curiosity is extremely important when you are even doing the current affairs. So that's why I included this question. Distinguish between care economy and monetized economy. How can care economy be brought into monetized through women empowerment? So see this question. Okay, if you know these words, you will be able to answer this very easily. My question is, if what happens if you don't know these words? Look at this. It is asking women empowerment. It has a word care. It has a word monetization. Right? And then it says that it can be converted into monetized by empowering women. What can this be? Right? So women are taking care of something which is not really monetized a lot. And the question is asking, by empowering this woman, how can this work be monetized? The care work. Then you can build a story. If you actually can understand this aspect, and I'm talking of only those students who did not read about care economy or these terms specifically. Okay, can you really guess? So some kind of logical thinking, if you don't understand the question, you have to develop that. And not answering this question because now the question paper is out, you can find n number of answer. I'm only picking up those questions where there is something, right, that you could have done, or you could have thought, or then students who are preparing for the next year, how can they really include certain approach in their study so that they are well prepared and better prepared for the mains next year. Okay, so if you have understood this, then you can write some story which is relevant. If you don't actually link this and not able to find this linkage, you won't be able to write anything in this 15-mark question. So next one. Okay, this is a long question. I am only going to talk about explain the role of VLCC at the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, which contributed to the successful launch from Sriharikota. Now, if I'm sure that all of you have tracked the Chandrayaan news, but then how many of you really tracked the launch? Everyone tracked landing. Everyone studied landing, orbiting around the earth, dire dire, escape velocity, stuff like that, and then landing on the moon. But then South Pole पे landing हुआ था. But then the question is about this part, जहाँ से वो ऊपर गया पहली बार. Of course, there is a question about the parts of that, or components or modules of the Chandrayaan, I think subsystems, right? So that is fine. I'm sure that all of you have written it, but only those who could write right answer to this are going to differentiate. So even in such a burning current affair, there is a possibility that some aspect you may leave on the table without reading about them. Not warranted. I mean, I was not, to be honest, expecting, although in my analysis I said ISRO, NASA are important topics, but I put them in GS3 as a part of geography. I did that, but then I said that it can be science technology question also. So there is a question around it. So it is pretty much expected. But then, to what extent? Okay. So again, the holistic approach is important. Yeah, so with all these GS1, 2 and 3 questions, I have actually jotted down certain learnings or insights for you. And I'm going to briefly summarize this, right? Always read static and current and vice versa. Current affair for last 1 year. If you see all these questions, nothing is older than 1 year. Even you see the other questions of GS2 and 3, artificial intelligence, electric, everything you must have seen some or other thing in the news in last 1 year. Right, so the worry that you have that how long I should go back in the current affair, if it is taking a taking too much of a time and energy to look at current affairs of last 2-3 years, leave that, right? Focus a lot and go into depth of the current affairs. That's the message this paper is giving. Static and current, I'm sure that you know this. So let me take example of one question, right? And let us say it is a question on fjord. Okay. So if you are talking about a specific landform, right? And then you see some news about a fjord, because I think Norway passed some regulation around fjord in last 1 year. So if you come across a news, put that data or your notes into the fjord related notes. So basically prepare your notes according to topic, not कि ये static है, ये physical है, ये oceanography है, ये history है, ये modern है, ये club together all the information related to that topic at one place, and don't think about whether ये GS1 है, 2 है या 3 है, right? Develop your knowledge about the topic, right? And then see which question is asked in which paper, and you will be comfortable with that. But how do you build knowledge? Because the more you break the topic, more difficult is for your brain to keep the track of all that and bring it all together in the exam, right? You look at the questions, it is important. History, geography, connections, history, geography, society, economy, agriculture, everything, many questions are mixed with each other, right? Some aspect of society with geography, society with history, history with geography, economic with agriculture, agriculture and geography. So is it worth doing the notes subject wise? Of course there will be a dominance of one subject in your notes, but then when you are preparing a geography notes, and then you suddenly see the, in ancient India it talks about river, development of river, the question should come to your mind, Are, why Ganga, Yamuna, Sindhu played an important role, right? By the way, there is the answer to that question in old NCRT, the very first chapter of history book. Okay, so go and read that. But then if you have not, which is very unlikely that you might have read, but it is about your own thought process of linking and connecting the things with each other, that will help you to solve these kind of questions. Third, I mentioned newspaper is a must. No shortcut by reading CA. Current affair compilations will help you to revise. Okay, but you should not take a shortcut and say, okay, I will see end of the month compilation or watch some videos for current affairs. You won't find. I mean, look at the questions, right? There is a current affair, but they are asking your opinion on it. They are asking you to analyze it. So that you are not going to find. That you have to prepare that material for yourself, and that can be done only by reading newspapers, because newspaper will give you the points, the positive points and negative aspects of each and every current affair that you see. Read article, read editorial, then you will be able to understand. Developing that perspective is important, and that will give you the points to write in the answer. This will help you to revise. Develop the art of expanding what you know by adding relevant details. Now you saw a couple of questions where you might know only few small aspect, like only Google case, right? Not aware of Amazon or WhatsApp case, or you don't know any case. Then what do you write? I'm sure that when you are practicing for mains and when you are giving the mock test, there will be question like that. But then it is a quality of a smart student to understand the question and try to build the story. And what will you do in an interview? Unless it is a fact based direct question which you do not know, then you can say I don't know, or you can leave the question blank in the mains. But then if it is the analysis type of a question, right, it is asking about your opinion, then you can't leave it on the table, because you should be able to write your opinion. That is the art of answer writing. Okay? And that is a smartness that you bring while writing the answer. So practice more of that, right? Think about various aspects. Try to push yourself to write the things which you are not comfortable with. Okay? There is no optional in this. All 20 questions are mandatory. So you must feel comfortable to be uncomfortable. So that's the message here. Develop a general understanding of socio-economic issues. Okay, not everything is about data. Of course, data is important, reports are important, they should go, in your notes, the static and dynamic compiled notes that you have. But then look at the question: suicides, marriage, mobile and child. Suicide, marriage, you can, write some stats at least. What will you write when you say that whether, mobile phone is impacting the social development of the kids? There is no data. I mean, there will be, but that answer does not give importance to that data. It is more about your understanding of the issue that is matter there, right? So develop a broader understanding of the. Our country faces a lot of issues, so having a good understanding of this is very important. Get a good understanding of tail enders, right? I talked about contrast. I have, done a video, link my description mein de dunga. Good understanding is important. If you do not focus on contrast, your marks will go down in that question. Not only for prelims but vegetation ka question, right? Even I would say that ancient India and geography question, you can answer this question based on NCRT are the, foundational stone. So if your NCRTs are strong, then you will be able to write something even if you don't know about the topic from the advanced book or from the current, because almost all of these questions you will be able to write something if your NCRTs are strong, right? So focus on NCRT. I mean, don't ignore them. And of course, example, right? Everywhere, they are asking, write example with reference to this, define, give the case laws, things like that. So this you already know, but I just wanted to repeat it. Your answer will be enriched if you actually talk about of examples. So these are the insights. I would think that, interesting thing is when you ask students how was the exam, they tend to say that, it was easy, it was better than last year. But then that it is not enough to be better than last year, and it is not enough that you feel good about your answer. It is required that your answer is, better than thousands of other students, 10,000 other students, right? So is it better than 10,000 other students is the real question. And if you have to make that better than other 10,000 students who are giving the mains, then all these aspect you should inculcate as a habit in your preparation. Okay, so that's my message for today. I will come out with another video. I'm now going to focus a lot on the CSAT in these videos, and then I'll continue to bring the animated geography video. So if you're not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. We are bringing a very high quality content for you, which will certainly help you to prepare for your UPSC exam. So thanks for watching this. I'll see you in the next one.